Yes, hello, hello world. Woo is right. What is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. The world first met our next guest back in the early 2000s when MTV put a literal megaphone in front of his absurdist brand of comedy, in turn kickstarting the future generation's obsession with putting their bums on things. Since then, he's hosted countless TV shows, not only his own, guesting for David Letterman. He was on Saturday Night Live. He starred in a whole bunch of movies, and now, for nearly a decade, he's been traveling the world and performing stand-up. You can catch him September 21st and 22nd. That's this Friday and Saturday over at Caroline's Comedy Club in New York City. But until then, he's right here, right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please, the great Tom Green. How about that?
Wow.
Let's do it up.
Wow. 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 That's crazy. That's
all true.
That was a great intro.
Thank you.
It was a really nice intro. I've got to come here more often.
I will write one of those every time.
Yeah, it makes me feel so good about myself.
You did all those things.
Yeah, I did do all those.
Should feel good.
I did do those things. Yeah, it's weird. You know, I started a little show on public access TV in Canada, and then I got to do all those things. It's cool. Now I'm here on this crazy show.
With this wonderful audience?
Yeah, with an audience, and they're all on couches. You're all on couches, and we're in New York City. And it's incredible. No, thanks for having me on.
Tom, I'm so excited you're here, man. You know, and the beauty of the show is we do get a couple of minutes to hang out and talk about everything you've been doing so far. So I always love to just start with a very simple question, which is, how are you? How's Tom doing?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, it's just nice to be here on this amazing show with all of these incredible people in New York City. I love being in New York City because my show started in New York City. The American version of my show. It was on in Canada, but then when MTV picked it up, MTV brought the show to New York, and it was an exciting time. So whenever I'm walking around New York or here doing stand-up in New York, it's a bit of a flashback.
A trip down memory lane.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. It's a nice feeling.
It's nice to revisit that stuff sometimes. How long have you been doing comedy, man? I was reading. It seems like the hard number is like 8 years-ish, but you've been interested long before that, right?
Well, I started doing stand-up when I was 16, so that was 8 years ago. So. No,
my math is immaculate.
No, well, it gets a little, you know, there's a little two ways. I started doing stand-up when I was 16, and I did it, you know, when I was a teenager. Then I got into broadcasting and started my show, but I really have been on the road touring, you know, the last few years, 10 years or something like that, just really nonstop. Yeah. I'm having a good time doing it, getting to see the whole world doing stand-up.
It's pretty.
I'm going to Asia, doing an Asian tour, doing Hong Kong, Tokyo, Singapore, Shanghai, Saigon, all sorts of places. Yeah, next February. So I just went to Israel doing stand-up for the first time, and I've been all over England and all over the U.S. Of course, every state in the U.S. It's a great thing because you know MTV was really cool. Like I was just making up this crazy show when I was a kid, and they just picked it up and put it on TV, and now it's you know I've got this worldwide you know. People all over the world. There's a lot of goofy people in the world, you know.
There are quite
a lot of goofy people in the world that like goofy stuff. Yeah.
And you are the, if not unofficial, king of goofy stuff. I think I liked it because Jackass came on a couple of years after or not a couple of months after your show kind of tapered off. They came on, and I like to think you started the fire that they tried to throw gasoline onto. Really, like you were doing a lot of those. Literally, as it were. Like you were doing a lot of those things. It was kind of the first time any of us had seen that yet. You know, it's hard to imagine a world without YouTube or anything like that. But MTV saw this goofy, crazy kid, and they were like, well, everybody needs to see what he's doing. Yeah,
it's pretty wild. Like there was no YouTube. You couldn't watch video on the internet in 1999. And, you know, it wasn't for a few years till you could actually, the internet just wasn't fast enough. And so, you know, there really wasn't access to all this kind of crazy, you know, guerrilla comedy like there is today.
Well, do you ever stop and think, thank God I was born when I was, because I have no idea what I'd have to do to stand out now? Because like there's such a different time where there is, I don't want to say an oversaturation, but it's a lot easier. The barrier for entry is a lot lower. Anybody can do something crazy and throw it up there now.
Yeah. It's definitely true. Like when the show went on MTV, people hadn't really seen that kind of thing before, and so it did get some get a pretty good reaction from people, which was actually. You know, I don't think you can really get that today as easily. You know, it was more. I would do pranks on my parents. I do a lot of pranks on my. I painted my parents' house plaid, and I had I'm not sure if I can say everything
You
that
can say
I did.
anything, and you can talk about.
I had pornography airbrushed
Slutmobile.
on the hood of
Yeah.
their car, and when they saw that, they were upset, and then we would film them getting angry with me. So you've seen that kind of stuff on TV since, but at the time, like there wasn't even really reality TV yet. So people would come up to me and they were like, didn't really believe that it was my real parents. They thought they were actors. It was very confusing for people, which I like. I like confusing people. I do.
Keeping them off.
I enjoy that.
Off their rhythm, throwing them off their rhythm.
I enjoy confusing that. Yes. Hopefully you're confused right now. Yeah, I hope you're confused.
I'm getting that vibe. Yeah. I always wondered, you know, as things panned out, because I think in the moment that you're paying the whatever amount of money to have the pornographic scene airbrushed onto your parents' car, you don't know that in a couple of years you will be making movies and all that. But did your parents, did they ever come around when they saw that this was a path, that things were working? Did they ever go, you know, that was a little crazy, but kudos, sir?
The weirdest thing that happened was, like the show kind of took off really fast when we got to New York, and I'd been doing it for 5 years. I was still living in their basement. Yeah. I was too old to be living in their basement. I was like,
how old are you, man?
Well, I think I moved out when I was like 26 or something like that.
That's not terrible.
I was too old.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I was 27. I don't know. But and you know, I was volunteering doing the show. Then when we got on New York on MTV in New York. You know, my parents were still kind of mad about some of the pranks that I'd done to them. Yeah. They were always conflicted because, you know, I was a broadcasting student and they wanted me to do something.
Yeah, you weren't really doing anything.
Just to do something, you know. So they were happy I was doing something, but they just didn't really particularly like being, you know, part of it. Yeah. But then when the show got on MTV, the first person that called us from the media in America was Oprah. And she wanted to have my parents and my mother on her Mother's Day special to play back all the pranks that I did. So I don't know how Oprah found out about it. I guess she just liked what I was doing, so or thought it would be funny for her Mother's Day special, maybe. So my mother kind of forgave me after that.
Yeah, you got a phone call from Oprah. It feels like
we all flew to Chicago, and my mom got to meet Oprah. It was done. It was legitimate at that point.
That is the definition of legitimate. Talk to me a little more about comedy, finding your voice as a comedian. You know, you said you tried a little or started when you were like 16 and then you got into broadcasting and all that stuff. Was stand-up always a big part for you growing up? Did you watch, like, did you guys have HBO and see the Young Comedian specials? Like, was stand-up a big part of your life, or what was your young
I just loved going to the comedy club and watching stand-up. Live stand-up, and you know, I was a big fan of comedy. I loved David Letterman, actually. Yeah. David Letterman was my hero, and I would go to the comedy club in Ottawa and see comedians like Harland Williams, who's one of the great Canadian comics, and you know, it was just an exciting thing to be doing stand-up when I was a kid. But when I got into broadcasting, you know, I kind of felt like that was something that sort of took me a little away from stand-up for a while. I basically made a show like this. Yeah. Yeah. Except we would like throw, you know, milk at the camera and stuff like that, and we would break stuff. It was I was a little more unhinged back then.
You were, but that's why it worked, and that's why we were all so excited to see it. Because, and you know, talking about Letterman, that makes absolute sense, because your show, he was also unhinged and kind of taking all of these late night tropes and turning them on their head. And you were doing that with your show, finding these tropes and just throwing them out the window and trying to subvert all these expectations. When it came time now, present day, for you to do comedy, were you doing a similar thing? Were you looking for sort of established tropes and expectations that you wanted to yourself subvert with your comedy, or were you just
stand up?
Yeah, or were you just trying to be funny?
Well, you know, it's such an interesting time for stand up. You know, there's a lot of changes happening in the world. I just you know, I like commenting on just what's going on in the world right now, and so you know, my show's a lot more high energy. I'm sort of in, you know, I'm just sort of being me right now, but when on stage I kind of turn into a little bit more of a wild sort of crazy character that's delivering my jokes, and so it's a lot of fun. I do a lot of crowd work. I do a lot of interaction with the audience, and it's a good time.
That character, is there parts of that character that you've had with you your whole life? Was it a character that's revealed itself to you as you've been doing the stand-up? Because as I've watched clips and seen you live, I feel like there are little bits that I see like in your eyes when you're doing like the MTV stuff too, just like the way you carry yourself and the energy level that you bring and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like to keep people on edge as to what what it is that they're watching, and am I all there? And like right now, I used to do that a lot more in interviews, like in an interview setting like this. 15 years ago, I might have, shown up and, broke the set or something like that. And then everyone would be mad at me, and then you wouldn't have me back, and then it's just sort of counterproductive, because I want to come back. I want to come back.
I love this time.
Right. So I'm now trying to just leave the sort of the more crazy character to my on-stage persona.
Did it take you a while in the early stages of stand-up? Did it take you a while to reset those expectations with the audience? Were people coming in waiting for you to throw stuff down?
Well, I'm sort of figuratively throwing things around on stage. Like I'm saying, I'm not just sitting there on stage and just talking like this. It's pretty high energy thing. So
it's you in a smoking jacket and a leather chair, just calmly reading to people.
Yeah, not really. No, yeah.
Not anymore. No.
Yeah.
No. There is a thing that I've picked up that I'm curious about. I've seen you do it all throughout your comedy and your career, and it's you have a thing about language and words. You will find specific words.
Yeah.
You will repeat those words. You will morph those words until these totally boring, normal words become hilarious.
Daddy, would you like some sausage?
That's one of the...
Right? Daddy, would you like some sausage? So in my movie, Freddy Got Fingered,
Yep.
right? I had this scene where I say, Daddy, would you like some sausage? And now, like, literally every day, someone comes up to me and says, Daddy, would you like some sausage?
Oh, it's got
So I've always enjoyed, like, overly enunciating words. I just think there's a lot of comedy just within the sound of words. So, and I think part of it is my Canadian accent is in there, too. So that, and then overly enunciating with a Canadian accent, I think is funny to me. I think it's also sort of confusing to people, which I enjoy. I did that my whole life. When I was in school, I always just picked certain words that I just loved. I'm wearing a pair of pants right now. I wear a pair of pants.
There it is.
I like the taste of cheese and sauce.
These aren't funny words, but people are laughing. Like that's.
Do you like corn on the cob? Corn on the cob. Yeah. See, I just like saying words.
Yeah, you
like
forever. For me, you will forever own the word
chicken sandwich.
Yeah, that's
a delicious chicken sandwich. See, there's really nothing funny about that.
It works. The word tubing.
Tubing.
You own tubing in my head forever.
Tubing. Well, that was during the cancer special.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was getting about to undergo surgery for cancer. I had testicular cancer. Mm-hmm. They took my right testicle. I still have the left one. It's the middle one now. But no, it's also the left one. It's the one that's left. But yeah, so I did a documentary about my testicular cancer, and I was going in for surgery on my lymph nodes. While I was on MTV, we put this on MTV, and they were putting some tubing into me, some tubing to run some morphine into my, I don't know, like an epidural. So I said tubing. So that's another thing that people like. They come up to me and they say tubing. Yeah.
Would those be in the top 3? Is that it? Because that's the
I don't know
question.
if there's probably I don't know how many.
Sausage is the reigning king.
I don't know
you get
how
that all
many
the
words
time.
there are that I love to say. There's so many words, every word.
And you've done it your whole life,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, since you were a little kid, you just identified words and you would just repeat them and stuff. Yeah.
But it's been interesting because I did that cancer special, and it was really, kind of a wild thing happened, a wild side effect of that. I put this hour-long documentary about testicular cancer and about my sort of battle with that on MTV, and here I am, and I'm traveling around the world now, and I have people coming up to me all the time who were watching MTV at the time, who like went out to the doctor and like basically diagnosed their cancer because of it. Because it hits like young guys, right? Young guys get it, and they don't really know that they're going to get testicular cancer. And then when they do get it, they get embarrassed and they don't go to the doctor. So it's important, young guys out there, ladies, you don't have to worry about testicular cancer, but young guys, if you think something's wrong, and just generally, in all seriousness, everybody, if you ever feel sick, go to the doctor. You'd be amazed how many people don't. So many people don't. They're afraid. They don't want to get bad news. they're embarrassed if it's in a testicular cancer. It can be embarrassing for a young guy, and they don't go, and then that's how you kind of end up not being able to beat the disease. So
I remember that moment in that special very vividly, because it was also this person that we had come to know as this goofy, crazy guy, and suddenly here you were being vulnerable, being in danger. We were worried for you. We were like, oh my God, what's happening to Tom? And it was just a very specific moment in time. What was it that drove you to say, I'm going through this really difficult thing, let's put it all on camera?
we were filming everything anyways. And we did think that maybe it would be, something that might be informative.
Yeah.
Also, it was genuinely a very scary thing for me personally. Right. And I was kind of like so immersed in doing the show. I mean, this was my whole life, was doing the show at the time. And then to just stop the show almost would have been as traumatic to me as having cancer. Really, as crazy as that is to say, we were so passionate about the television show. So we just said, let's just keep the show going. Let's film this. It was sort of almost therapy for me, Yeah.
So cool. We're going to turn it over. I'm getting the signal. We've got a bunch of questions from the audience. I could sit here and ask you questions all day.
Hello,
but,
hi.
Let's do it.
How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you. This is cool. You stand up. It's like we're on Oprah right now.
I know. I feel very
We're basically Oprah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's cool.
he's
Maybe more
Oprah
like
in
Springer, maybe.
disguise.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Good to see you.
So thanks for coming out. I just wanted to start off by saying I'm a huge fan of you and your show. I was probably a little too young to watch it, and my parents wouldn't let me. But we were talking about YouTube and technology earlier. I used to have to sneak and set the VCR to record your show, and then sneak back and take the video out of the VCR. So kids today don't know the struggle. But
Yeah.
I made it work, and I know, man.
It's more fun when you're not allowed to watch.
Yeah,
Exactly.
amazing.
About it.
That's sort of what was cool about television versus YouTube is, there was weird stuff on late at night. Like for me, when I discovered
Cable
David
access.
Letterman, he was on at 12:30, right? And, after midnight. And that was when the weird TV came on.
Yeah.
And you couldn't just go on YouTube and see weird stuff all the time.
No,
So you had to kind of stay up late. And,
no appeal,
and
right?
It was forbidden. Yeah.
But I did have a question. So you did mention that you are traveling around the world and touring. And I just wanted to get a little sense of what that's like. What is it like to perform for audiences that maybe don't have English as their first language, it's their second language? Or I don't know if you have an interpreter, but do you feel that your comedy still relates, or is it kind of interpreted differently when it's done in that way?
Yeah, well, to simplify the question, most audiences are English audiences. Even if I'm performing in, Tokyo, it'll probably be a lot of American and British and European English audiences coming to that show. I haven't done a tour of Asia yet, but I've played in England and Australia and Scotland and Ireland and places with English-speaking crowds. But there's still a little bit of a disconnect. A little bit when you go to, England. There's some pop culture references and things like that, but for the most part, it translates pretty good.
Okay, and then on this tour, do you have an interpreter, or when you go to Asia? Or
No, because the tour it's probably going to be mostly English people coming to the show. Yeah, there's a lot of people in Hong Kong that speak English that don't have anything to do, so they're just going to come see me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Great questions. Thank you. We've got a couple more. Next one's going to come from all the way in the back on the red couch.
Hi, Tom Green.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. I know
Hello.
about you because my brother, he was your idol.
Oh, okay.
And he did a lot of pranks growing up, so I grew up in a crazy household.
Yeah.
The 500 pennies, he did that.
Oh, yeah, he'd pour pennies all over the place. He'd paint
Yeah.
stuff with pennies, yeah?
He
Cool.
took a shopping cart, decorated it, brought it
Nice.
home.
You ever get arrested?
No, but
Okay, that's good.
my parents actually liked it. It
Oh,
was
good.
entertainment for them every Saturday night. So,
Oh, good.
what was the craziest thing you did, and how do your parents react? I'm wondering the craziest prank you ever did in your life.
The craziest thing I ever did in my life on the show?
On the show, or maybe just a prank in general.
On the show, it's sort of hard to say what the craziest was because we were always trying to be crazy. Every week we
Yeah.
were trying to top ourselves every week. And at a certain point, you sort of lost perspective on what crazy was. You know?
Do you remember when that point was, when
Yeah.
it shifted?
Yeah, it was early on in the show. We would do really kind of gross out kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We would, we do weird stuff. So it's sort of hard to say what the craziest was, but
Right.
I do like the pranks I did on my parents because there was a real reaction from them.
Yeah.
That was always kind of, I think, relatable to people because people just couldn't imagine doing that to their own parents.
Yeah, well, my
Maybe
brother did
painting their
too.
house was probably the craziest.
Yeah, I was
thing.
thinking that.
Yeah, it felt like a big idea, to paint the entire
Yeah.
house. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That was a great
I'm
question.
glad you're doing well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to do one more in just a second, but I do have a follow-up because I was watching, you have on TomGreen.com, in addition to the tour dates, you also have some of the classic segments that are up there. And
Yeah.
one of the ones that I hadn't seen probably since Air was Undercutters, where you followed, for those who don't remember, you would follow an actual pizza delivery guy around with your own pizza and your own toppings, and you would try to swoop in and at the last minute undercut. It's a brilliant bit.
Yeah.
So the house you do that at, the guy had a hammer and kicked the toppings across the street. You were in real danger.
Yeah. It was supposed to be the pizza guy that got mad.
Yeah.
I was just
He got out. He couldn't care.
I was just offering the customer a better deal.
Yeah.
But for some reason, he got mad.
So mad.
For some reason, he got mad.
So mad.
That was in New York, by the way. That was in Long Island. And that was literally that was the first time we shot a video when we came to New York. So all the other videos have been shot. So the very first video I shot in America, and a guy chases me with a hammer. And I go, wow, Americans are different.
Yeah. There's a point, I'm watching the clip and you hear you panicking off camera. This is the line, Matt. Turn around, turn the camera around. This guy's coming at you with a hammer.
Yeah, I was telling our camera guy, I was a new camera guy, and I said, there's a line that you don't cross, like if the guy's coming at you with a hammer, you run. But he wanted to get the shot, right?
Good for him, I
We
suppose.
don't get the shot. We don't need the shot.
Was that one of the all-time scariest memories for you in terms of negative reactions in the moment? Because you were never mean-spirited. You were always you were doing something, like you said, to make people uncomfortable, but you were never just attacking a person or who they were. You were just being really weird.
Well, I say this to like young YouTubers
Yeah.
and people that I talk to who are trying to do pranks today. I think the thing that makes a prank or a stunt like that really funny, much funnier than if you're mean, is if you're not mean, but you get people riled up as if you had been mean, So you almost like confuse somebody into the point that they think that you were being mean, but really they're overreacting. Yeah. So if they're overreacting, that's what's funny, because then you're essentially the victim, And people want to, so that's the trick. I mean, I don't want to, kids out there are making pranks. That's the trick. Don't just go out and be mean to somebody or go out and do something horrible to somebody and film it. That's going to make you look bad. What you want to do is go out and confuse people, do something strange, do something a little wacky, and then when they get mad at you and they overreact and they come at you with a hammer, you have a little empathy, and then they're the jerk, right? I would have used a different word, but I don't know what words I can say on here.
A man charging at you with a hammer.
Saying nice words,
You can say any words you want.
No, I don't want to say swear. I don't want to, there's kids in the audience.
That's fair enough. If ever the considerate man. You really are an adult, aren't you? Now?
Yeah.
You've grown up, Tom.
Yeah, I never liked swearing that much.
No,
No,
wasn't
I never
big.
liked swearing that much.
No. You love words, but you don't like swearing.
Yeah, I don't like. I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
I swear when I do stand up, though. I do occasionally, but I try to swear as little as possible.
Yeah.
Try to work clean when I can.
Yeah.
Come see me at Caroline's Friday and Saturday in New York
September
City.
21st and
Times Square.
22nd,
Come see me. We're
that's
gonna have
right.
some good shows down there. Yeah.
And if you're not in New York, you can go to TomGreen.com. He's going to be all over the place. We've got one more question, I believe, and it's right here. Thank you for being so
Hi.
patient.
Hi.
No, don't worry. So I was just wondering, there's a lot of times that I hear people tell funny stories, and I'm like, this could have been way funnier had you told it differently. And something that always fascinates me about live comedy acts is it's all live, and you don't really know how the audience is going to respond. And so what do you think is the most important thing about live comedy, or the biggest don't do in live comedy?
Well, the most important thing is practice. So you got to remember, like usually when you're a professional stand-up comedian, most of those jokes he's telling or she is telling, they have told before. So, sometimes it takes literally years for a joke to become the joke that you want it to be. So you got to get up and stage as much as you can every night if you can, as much as you can possibly get on stage, and you have your joke and you have your idea and you've written it out possibly, or you have it in your head, but you have a beginning, a middle, an end, a punchline, and you try it, and the first night it might not work, but it might work a little bit, and then you change it a little bit, and you try it again, and you try it again, and try it again. Another thing is when you tell a joke and nobody laughs, which happens sometimes to everybody, just tell your next joke and just pretend that that everybody laughed, because if you act like nervous,
Right.
that's when you start to have some trouble. So you could tell a joke and finish the joke and nobody laughs. If you just keep talking, nobody even knows that you were finished the joke yet. So that's a good little trick too. Yeah, but I'd say practice. Get up on stage, get on an open mic, and are you going to do some stand-up comedy? Are you hoping to do some stand-up comedy?
I don't think I could, but I respect it a lot. My whole family
you're standing there with a
loves
microphone. That's halfway
Thanks.
there, right?
Yeah, basically there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
That
thanks.
was great. Thank you so much for that. Did you find yourself, we're going to wrap up in a second, but did you find that you yourself were better prepared for that? I mean, we saw in the flesh right there someone who respects comedy but is so intimidated by getting up there for a myriad of reasons. You made a living years before you were on stage of making people uncomfortable and being in situations that were awkward and uncomfortable. So was it easier for you to kind of walk on stage and try comedy?
You know, I think they just sort of, I think there's a certain element of some people just naturally have an inclination to get up and try to be the center of attention. I mean, when I was in high school, I would do comedy on stage. I just always wanted to be on stage. So that's helpful if you're naturally somebody that likes, you're a person that's decided, I want to sit on a TV set and talk, and so you're a person that, wants to be in front of people and communicating. So I've always been like that, So I think the stand-up when I was a teenager helped me with the TV show. Helped me when I was out in the street. When I was going out in the street doing interviews, I felt like I was kind of doing stand-up without the audience. Just with the camera was the audience, So
cool. Well, Tom, we're going to wrap it up. I'll say it one last time. This Friday and Saturday, September 21st and 22nd, you're going to be at Caroline's Comedy Club in New York City. For anyone who's not in New York, who's watching this, wherever you are, don't feel left out. Go to tomgreen.com. He's got a ton of tours coming up. You're going all over the world, right?
Yeah, all over the place. And follow me on Instagram.
Instagram?
Yeah, I love Instagram. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook, but I love my Instagram. Yeah, actually, I thought maybe can I take a quick little video here?
Do a video? Yeah.
A little video right now.
You guys do it? We want to do a video at a time real quick?
And then I'll post it on my Instagram. Okay. I'll start here.
Okay. Are you doing it?
Yeah, here we are. You go.
Okay, we're on Tom's Instagram right now. Everybody, we're on Tom's Instagram right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
We're on Instagram. We're on Instagram. We're on Instagram. Leave a comment if you watched the show. Leave a comment on my Instagram.
On his Instagram.
I love Instagram.
We love it.
I love
Instagram.
Instagram. I'm on the gram.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram.
It's new. It's new.
It is.
It's this new thing.
Very new.
It's going to be huge.
Perfect.
All right.
Did you get it?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Guys, it's freaking Tom Green. Come on, make some noise. Tom Green,
Thank you.
everybody.